Hello, good afternoon to you out there. Thank you so much for joining me today on my channel. Today, I am going to be discussing a topic that I think forms the core of my worldview, my current worldview, in view of all that is happening in the world right now. And by all that is happening, I mean there's been a lot of wars and rumors of war in recent times. Israel, Iran, Pakistan, India, Russia, Ukraine, so on and so forth. Discussions about anti-Semitism and protests all over the world. And I really want to reassess and ask myself, in view of all that is going on right now, is it still worth it believing in Jesus? Is it still of any spiritual significance that I am still a Christian? Is it still cool, or is it out of date, like some people say? Some years ago, I talked about how my faith in Jesus was crashing. My belief system as a Christian was crashing. And that was because at that time I was going through a lot of difficulties in my life. And as at that time I was going through unemployment, and I had, after at least 500 applications, I received a lot of rejections. And I had also been treated badly by the people in my life, by my friends, by flatmates, been taken advantage of. And I thought that, things would be better, things would improve. But I would say that 3 years after, I have even experienced far more disappointing issues. I have gone through even worse disappointments. I got a job afterwards. I lost that job again. I have had 3 miscarriages. And I have also experienced church hurt, and that was a very significant one for me. It was so terrible that it nearly messed up with my mind. It affected at a certain time my perception of people generally. I think I'm going to have to do a video on that experience separately. And life has gotten much more challenging for me in different ways. I was going through, and still have been going through, a long period of uncertainty in my life. And while all this was happening and is happening, I found myself moving from a place of being a person who was full of faith and trusting God to going through doubt, like, did God hear me? Does God hear my prayers? Are they valid? Are my needs before God valid? To a place of anger, where I felt that God knows my needs. God can do the things I have asked him to do. And why do bad things keep happening to good people? Why does he allow that? I entered into that period of anger, and it came to a point where I was no longer able to pray. I fell into also depression, severe depression, such that I remember that my mother would call prayers, family prayers, and she would say to me, "Could you pray?" And I say, "I don't have anything to pray." And I was sincere, because I was in a state of mind where I was saying to myself, maybe God just doesn't want to answer me. He will answer me when he wants to, because I look around me, I see people who do not seem so religious, or spiritually aware, or, really serious in their faith walk with God. And they seem to have everything working for them with little effort. They live in a good house, they have wonderful cars, they have wonderful jobs, they have businesses. Life seems to be good for them. They don't seem to have too much of a worry about anything, and here I am, loving God and serving him in my own way, and it looks like everything is difficult, to achieve any milestone. It's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And so I was at that point where I couldn't pray. I felt like I had overprayed. I have more than burdened or disturbed God with my request. And I just felt if he wants to do it, he will do it. I think he doesn't want to do it, or he's not ready. Whenever he wants to, he can. And I was in that state of mind when I came across a message, a video by a man of God I respect and follow. His name is Reverend Kesiena Esiri. I would put the link to his channel and his ministry in the description. And I've been listening to him in the last 2.5 years. And in that particular video that day, he was talking about Nigerians in the northern part of the country, Christians precisely, who are going through persecution because of their faith. I am Nigerian, and I have also lived and studied. I did my bachelor's degree in the northern part of the country, in Kano State, and is a state that operates by the Sharia law, by the Islamic Sharia law. So I understand what he was saying. And he was saying that there are Christians in those parts of the country who have lost everything. And these are often farmers who live in villages, peasants, communal life, communal living. They farm and they sell their products, and that's it. But they have gone through so much persecution. Some have lost entire families. Some have lost their spouses and children. Their church buildings have been destroyed, dilapidated. But yet the next Sunday, you see them coming up to worship in a dilapidated building. After all the destruction, they still have that faith, that courage and confidence to come up and say Jesus is Lord. And when he said that, it struck me because while I was studying my bachelor's degree, we also faced that challenge. There's a place in the Bible where Paul says that we bear in us every day the mark of death. There was that uncertainty that because we worshipped in an open place as students, there was no form of security or protection. We knew we were prone to attacks as students who believed in Jesus, who evangelized or proclaimed the name of Jesus. And every time we would go out to fellowship, we knew that there could be that possibility of not coming back. And yet we would go with our Bibles. And I had to ask myself at that point to say, what happened to me? This was the Bernice of then. What happened to that Bernice who knew that she could lose her life just going out to worship? And now, have I stopped believing in God because of the things that I'm not able to have, because of certain prayers that have not been answered? What happened? Have I now lost my faith and confidence in God? And this brought me to the point where I had to really ask myself the question, do I still believe in Jesus? And if I do, what are my reasons? And that took me to 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. I'll read up to 9, where Peter was saying, be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. In verse 9, he says, resist him, firm in your faith, not another person's faith, knowing that the same kinds of suffering are being experienced by your brotherhood throughout the world. And this brought a form of deliverance for me, because ultimately what the devil wants to do most of the time is to make us feel lonely, is to make it look like we are the only ones going through problems or challenges. Is to make us feel surrounded and overwhelmed, and we give in, we turn our backs on God because we feel God is not coming through for us, is not answering our prayers, and we would only see people around us who are doing well while we are not. But the truth of the matter is that, just like I said, there's been wars and rumors of wars. There are Christians caught up, in the crosshairs of those wars, who have lost everything as well. Their families, their businesses. There are, like I said, Christians in the northern part of the country who have lost everything, who are not necessarily even asking God for the same things that I am, but just want to live their lives, express their faith and enjoy communal life. But they have lost everything. Whole villages, hundreds of thousands of people have died simply because they believe in Jesus. So I'm not the only one. It may not be the exact same kind of suffering, but the truth is that there are faithful Christians, faithful believers in different parts of the world going through things perhaps even worse than I have experienced. There are families who have children who are physically challenged. There are all sorts of things that are going on. I know there are Christian families, Christian couples who have been waiting to have children for 28, 30 years. Some have died not having any, and yet they kept believing in Jesus. And for me, this became my challenge, that they became my own cloud of witnesses to see that there are people who are going through or have gone through something like I am going through, or even worse, and have kept their faith. And I could feel that was the encouragement coming to me, asking me to stand up for what I believe in. And that brought me to the point to say, I do still believe in Jesus. And I believe in him, first because I recall the days when he has come through for me. The days in the past when I would only whisper a prayer in my heart without discussing it with anybody else, and he would respond. That prayer would be answered, and I knew beyond every reasonable doubt that it was God who answered my prayer. And so it stands for me as a testimony to see that if he'd answered me in the past, he can answer me again. He can do it again. He's done it before. I believe in Jesus because I'm not the only one who is going through this challenge. There are Christians in the Christian Brotherhood in different parts of the world, Christians in China, in the 1040 window, the countries in the 1040 window, in India, in Pakistan, in other countries in Asia, who have to even worship underground, who have lost empires, wealthy Christians who've lost everything for the cause of the gospel. And I'm not the only one who is going through my own suffering in my own way. There are people suffering as well. And finally, and it also brings me back to what Jesus promised, because Jesus did not promise us a life free of troubles. He said to us, in this world you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer because I have overcome the world. So he already put it out there to us that you are going to have challenges in this world. But what is promised is that we will be saved. Our souls will be saved. Even though our bodies may suffer in this world and we go through events or things that trouble our bodies, our minds, maybe even our pockets, our wealth, yet the promise is that our soul will be saved. And that's most important, because what can you give in exchange for your soul? And lastly, I still believe in Jesus because for me, I consider that this is a time of testing. Yes, it's been years. It's been 6 years now of waiting for so many things that do not seem to have happened yet. I'm not living the kind or quality of life I desire. However, I believe it's a time of trying and testing for me, and that when God is done with me, I will come out as gold. So this is me encouraging myself and encouraging you as well to, document your experiences, the testimonies of the times when Jesus has come through for you, when God has worked miracles and wonders on your behalf. And now, or whenever there are difficulties or difficult times, return to those testimonies. Let them be the ashes by your altar to encourage you that if God has done it before, he can do it again. If he's doing it in the life of another person, God is in the neighborhood. And very soon it will be your turn and my turn. And that's also why I'm documenting these experiences on YouTube, because for me, I want to be able to look back when these captivities are turned around, to be like them that dreamed, and see how, the chronicles of what I had gone through before my victory. So if you are a believer in Christ and you've gone through difficult times, the times that made you question your faith, please share your experience in the comment section. And also, perhaps you may be encouraging someone that you may have never met. Thank you so much for staying with me today. See you soon at another time. God bless you.